So thanks for the great transition as well there, because now we're going to move on to our deep dive for the month. And as I mentioned, this is a way to go deeper on a particular topic of interest, rather than trying to tackle this and everything else when we're together in person. It allows us to spend a little bit more time without overloading you with information, and we can include more people. Over the last few years, as Scott said, we've had to adapt and find new ways of doing things, and and one of the biggest is virtually. Well, we are back somewhat to in-person events. We've learned that there are positives to having a hybrid approach to our club meetings, training events, and any other Rotary activities. Like in an in-person event, the key should be making a hybrid event as engaging as possible for everyone, both in the room and online. So today we're going to dive, I didn't even notice I did that, a deep dive, and now we're diving into how to utilize hybrid meetings effectively. Joining me is a member of the Eden Prairie AM Rotary Club here in suburban Minneapolis, John Crudele. John has served as president of his club in 2019-20 and has served District 5950 and our zones as a whole to share effective use of virtual and hybrid meetings. He's the right guy to be in this role too, as he has over 35 years of experience as a professional speaker, so he knows how to engage an audience. John, thanks for being here.
Kyle, gosh, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for the personal invitation and your trust. It's good to see Tom Gump, who was district governor and a dear friend of mine, and who kind of charged me with the aspect of bringing hybrid to not just our district, but to the zone. So it's great to be with you, to help us learn. From learning, we go to understanding. From understanding, we go to empowerment. From this, we go to humble confidence. And that's where I hope we can end up in the 2 or 3 hours we have together.
Yeah. Well, 2 or 3 hours, you're going to be on your own by the end of that.
20 minutes, 25 minutes. It's going to be
about 25 minutes. And I'm gonna put in the chat here just the link to our to the hybrid meeting resources page that you and your team have put together on our zone website. But so let's start at the beginning. Why is having a hybrid component to your meetings and events important in today's environment?
Absolutely. Thanks. And I know these questions for everyone that's going to be participating here, they're going to build on each other. So just stay with us through this whole piece. Like Scott, he just defined my experience, because as a president that same year, in the same moment he was a district governor, when we pivoted literally inside of a week, I think it was March 17th, thereabouts, where we canceled the meetings. We all went to something we hadn't heard of, Zoom, basically. And we only missed one meeting in my particular club. And we got trained on this and started to create this interactive experience in another way, virtually. And people want to stay connected, and they want to stay connected in the most meaningful ways. And so from canceling, and I was talking to district governors around the zone, and some clubs didn't have a meeting for 6 months. I mean, they literally just shut down, and they were waiting for everything to come back to normal. And just kind of hold on to this, and that is that we're not going to go back to normal, and there's not going to be a new normal. There's going to be a next normal. And we need to trust in this. And so when in crisis, it was Michael Hyatt that said, when in crisis, ask the question, what does this make possible? And so what it made possible was us interacting virtually. Well, then as we started to be able to get to where people were in different places of health and comfort of getting back together, we have the desire to connect. People wanted to start meeting again. And the idea of surveying your club to say, are we ready to meet? It was crazy how this was coming back. We couldn't get there. No one was we would never have a meeting if we waited for everyone to come back. So then it was, how can we do this? And industry was ahead of us. Industry, if you surveyed Next Normal, they were starting to introduce something called hybrid. And the idea of having an interactive experience, an interactive meeting experience with people in the room and people virtually. Some people tried streaming, and that was, you watch it. It's like a TV show. That isn't effective. Hybrid was coming and bringing people together and honoring people in the room and honoring people that are virtual and bringing them together. And that's what this tool is all about, and it serves people.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to engage people, both in the room and online as well. And you mentioned there at the beginning, that there are people that clubs, well, we'll just get back together when this is over, and we're still there 2 years almost. And you're right, March 17th, I was supposed to be flying to Florida, and still haven't been to Disney World. And my kids remind me of that every now and again too. But now, okay, we're 2 years in, and let's look forward as we continue to look to the future. Why do you think, why will hybrid meetings continue to be important?
I think what's happened is I mean, I've got friends that are elderly or older friends. I'm on the front end of that in some regards, saying, hey, we wanted to see our grandchild's first birthday. And so hybrid, or actually, was a way to be able to do this. They learned Zoom, they learned things to be able, and now that they've done this technology they would have never discovered before, they're going, hey, I'm comfortable with this. And so how can I apply this at the club level? You look at companies doing the same thing. To retain talent, they need to let people work from home or allow and find different ways. People are moving around. It's called the law of proximity, though, too, where people want to get together. So a couple points that I've listed out here is that it's become expected. It's just not an option for employers, but for ways for people to come together. But it involves our reach and our extension. So what that means is attendees can access your club meeting from anywhere. We can have guests that can be from anywhere. We can have prospects that can be from anywhere. Tom is specializing in this, Mr. Gump, around the world on starting clubs that can, because of the virtual component, people can be further out from the center of town. They can attend from home. They can attend from the office. We've got people that are attending from, when they're wintering in Florida or Phoenix or something, or they're at the cabin, or they have a tight work schedule that day. And so because they have adapted to now the virtual part, the Zoom part, they're going, gosh, if I can be in the meeting without the drive time, or if I have a tight meeting, I can participate in this way. If as a communicator on a committee, I can interact with my co-chair, they're in the room, I'm at home, able to work together. This is a part that now is, wow, this makes something possible that may be even better than it was before. And so embrace that. Imagine a small club or any club who could only rely on speakers who are within driving distance out in rural wherever. And now you could have, for World Polio Days and things such as that, you can have someone from anywhere in the world as your speaker, even in the smallest of clubs. All you need to do is have a laptop, have a projector, have a big screen, and now you've got a guest from anywhere, and now you make your meetings more appealing. The flexibility with virtual, your meetings can be hosted from anywhere. Members can attend in person virtually in any given week. Those are some of the touch points. People that can winter, I've touched on that. Tom Gump can be anywhere. Jennifer Jones coming into her year, the ability for her to be on several continents in one day and be involved in a hybrid meeting is making this access a way for this to have a personal touch, where before they'd be flown in, they'd need to be entertained, there'd be hotel charges. You could do 1 or 2 or 3 a week, depending on the pace. And so it makes, she came to Rotary Zone Institute. She came there via virtual for both the keynote at the luncheon, as well as for breakouts for other people. So we can do this too in our lives. We can do this in the club level. And my invitation is just to look through the lens of your what you're charged with in public image, to say, how might you leverage this? Engagement is another. You can include people in the room. You can record to rebroadcast, as we're doing today. Raj in Maple Grove, a past president and someone I worked with quite a bit in his club, he had grants going in both Africa and India at the same time. I happened to be a guest speaker at one of his meetings. That day, he had, I think, 12 to 15 guests. They were literally talking about these grants. They had the sponsoring international club person on from those countries. They had the recipients of the grants in the meeting. It was just amazing to be able to bring this together, which then inspires their own Rotarians, those that are the donors that might have been invited in as other guests, whether they were Rotarians or not. And so again, it's just the imagination there is remarkable. So those are a few things as far as I think the relevance continuing to go forward.
Yeah, and I think, and society doesn't tend to go backwards. So now that more people are comfortable with things and they expect more, we need to continue to provide more there. And that's like you said, it creates for better accessibility for our members. There was a couple of weeks ago, I had to give my wife a ride to the airport on Wednesday morning, and I really wanted to listen to our speaker. And so I dropped her off and was on the meeting on my phone on the way back from the airport, because I can do that then, where in the past I would have skipped that meeting and just felt out of touch with things. And to bring in better speakers, like you said, it's great from that standpoint. So this is a public image webinar. So I think the next question here really hits our side of the world. How best do you make a hybrid event that's engaging to everyone in both audiences? And I think now we're getting into a little bit more content, and I'll repost in the chat the resource link again and your email address too as you answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to reference it, so I may have you pull up, if you would, into your browser that particular page and at some point I'll ask you just to share it. So I'll start by sharing mine, and then we can look at what's at this, because I'm going to share a few slides. These are slides that I also shared at the Rotary Zone Institute, and there we go. And then know that there's a page dedicated to this with videos, with PDFs, with the PowerPoint decks downloadable and at length. There's one video on there on how to do a large club meeting that's been viewed, I think now 16,000 times. It's got literally ads attached to it. And all I did was show people in 9 minutes how to use the equipment that's behind me. So it's all there and you can dive in. But I'd like to just help you to think some things through and show you some pictures and point out a few things in actual meetings. It's really hard to design products with focus groups. A lot of times they don't know what they want until you show them. And that's what you're doing in public image. You're showing people what's possible. Simon Sinek has a way to describe it. And he said, start with why. Why is all those 4 goals that were shared at the very beginning. Why is is how we can inspire and impact people, the mission and vision of Rotary around the world in each of those areas. So how is bringing people together, and what we do to do this is the hybrid. And the what is some of the tools within the hybrid. So you always go back to why. Otherwise, we get exhausted. If we're just looking at what it is that we need to do, we might actually start to get resentful. So always come back to the purpose and the why as you then look at then these 3 goals and objectives. Club meetings held in person and virtually. This is just the reinforcement of what we covered at the beginning. Goal is to honor. Remember that word, honor. We're there to honor and support members in both groups, to attract, involve, and to engage them in both groups. They're all inside the meeting at the same time. And I'm going to show you some pictures where I think you're going to actually feel the vibe of that. And to generate the interactive experience, So we're honoring people based on their health issues or their reasons for staying away, or as you said in the ride home, you're able to tap in. I think I've been at your club in Prior Lake, Kyle, where you were, maybe on a phone tapping in at some point. So we want to honor that. Excuse me there. I'm getting excited. This is Mark, and this is with Bloomington. And he is with Stephen, and they're doing, say, happy dollars and sharing back and forth. You can look at Mark. He's actually looking at his laptop. And what's happened there is they've chosen the camera at the podium to be the laptop podium at the beginning. And with this now, Stephen, what does he see? We see Stephen's face. He's looking at everybody sitting in the room. But what does Stephen see? He doesn't see himself. I don't see myself right now on full screen. He sees Mark looking right into his eyes. And so it's a very personal and intimate experience for him. Here's Terry Lowe, also at Bloomington. What you see on the screen is what everyone at home is seeing, because he's using a cell phone. He's a move around guy, and he likes to use a little small tripod. So when he's doing happy dollars, he's going around to the tables with the microphone, and he's spotlighting his particular phone, and he's turning on the mic, and he does all this through the large group system, which is what I have behind me and which you can see on that particular website. So everyone at home sees what's on the screen, but because that's the particular camera that he has highlighted. Now, a year later, I went back to Bloomington Noon, and people are now interacting. They're not having masks as much. And look who's doing the invocation or the inspiration. It's the gentleman at home. This is the interactive part where they are literally being led. The pledge can be led by someone in the room or someone at home. The invocation or the inspiration can be led from someone in the room or someone at home. Four-way test the same way. Committee conversations and updates and announcements can be both in the room and at home. And we're honoring this, and you're doing the screen shares based on what is going to optimize it so that people in the room are experiencing those that are tuning in, and those that are at home are actually able to experience and feel like they're in the room. This is Terry running the meeting. He likes to use 2 laptops, and the advantage of this is in this particular meeting, they actually had 2 speakers that were with the same group about this type of voting. They were not in the same location. So they were in their homes actually in 2 different parts of town, and they were going back and forth in their presentation. And so what you see at home is what's on the left-hand side, and he's running the meeting from that host computer, but he's actually using the projector computer on the right. And so he can adjust the shots in the room, which means that you could have speaker view at home, but he could actually force and have gallery view so you can see everybody in the room, where he can adjust these things. And he's eating lunch during the presentation, so he's just making it fun. We call it hybrid support instead of tech support because it's just there's not as much resistance for this. So what about people virtually? This would have been Kyle coming back from the airport. He would have been looking at the meeting on his cell phone, and a screenshot of that would have looked something such as this. And so you're able to participate. And I often attend meetings virtually, and I give hybrid support afterwards. And so I enjoy taking screenshots. This is Hudson. So it's in the 5960. It's in Kyle's district. And I've just found so much joy with their club. Ruth was the past president 2 years ago, year and a half ago now. And she's there explaining to her hybrid support person really what she wants. This is before the meeting, but notice the view and you've got 2 people in it. So here's how this is achieved. She has a camera. They have a camera set up at about 2 o'clock pointing towards the podium. And so now kind of look at now, and here's a line to remember. Let the culture of your club drive and determine the technology that you get versus get technology and force it into your club. If your club is used to the microphone moving around, then find a way to bring a camera around to go to people, or they can line up, to come up for, let's say, happy dollars or announcements, but find ways so that it still has that same feeling. And so when you look at it, then it goes over, and this is Paul off to the side, and he's now one person running the entire meeting. So here's what it looks like to me. I like to slide that cursor over so I can see a lot of people and have a chance to view the expressions and get a sense of how they're receiving. But when you look at her, that red box, this is the view of people at home if they have it in speaker view with screen share. Then gallery view is what I have it in. It's okay. Notice kind of the look there. Now here's the full look. So again, adjusting it, and you've got a feeling of being in the room versus if it's the camera right on your computer, it looks like a Zoom conversation. This one now looks like you're actually in a conference room or at a meeting. That stepping back a little bit helps with this. Here's my favorite picture in every photo that I've taken in my time doing hybrid training and trying to capture something. This is Ruth doing a handoff to Chris, who's going to start leading 3 questions. They're going to have people in the room answer 3 questions, and they're going to have people online answer 3 questions. And they've got a vibe going between them, and they've got a banter. This is a very playful club. You can see it. Now, if this was looking into the screen, it would just look like me looking into the screen right now laughing. But because the camera's a little ways back and it's a USB camera going in, and you can pick between those cameras, this is what you experience at home. Doesn't it feel like you're in the meeting? Somebody is, they're there. And now he's asking 3 questions. You can see him up in the upper box there. He's asking the questions, and this is what you see with the person speaking, because it goes to speaker view for the screen when you're highlighting somebody in this way. And then you've got Brenda and Jill up giving an announcement. And so here they are. They're giving the announcement like they normally would at home. This is what I see. This is my screenshot. And notice behind them, they've got it set with gallery view. So the screenshot for the people in the room, they don't need to see the speakers up on the screen because they're right in front of them, but they'd love to see their friends up on the screen. And another technique is also you can get it to where it's not showing all the boxes where the videos are shut off, so that you can get all the pictures together. Make sure that those other ones are at the end. So you're really seeing people's faces. Another piece is to invite people for hybrid etiquette to keep their cameras on. And here you go. This is Kyle's club. This is Prior Lake, where I learned the most about hybrid from Joe and Dave as they were jumping right in as soon as they could get open. And this is Marlis, president 2 presidents ago. And she's looking, there you go. You can see what you see at home is always the highlighted. They have a 2-camera shoot in the room. She's not actually looking at the one that's right in front of her at the podium. That's 2 screens over at the very top. This is one that's a little further back. So they actually got a little more complex in how they're choosing their views, but this is a year in. So that would be some examples. Pull up, if you would. Let's see, do I have it here? There's the page. Pull up this page, if you would, Kyle, and then I'm going to jump out of screen share.
Okay. You want me to share it?
Yeah, I'm going to have you share it.
All right.
I'm down to like my last 2 slides when I come back.
Sounds good.
So if you just scroll through this, what you're going to see is all these links and text setup guides. When you look at those templates, there's 4 clubs. Chanhassen, you keep coming down. So here's the setup tips. You've got the videos right there, the length of them, so that you're not getting into something all of a sudden you find out it's an hour and 10 minutes. Those text setup guides on the left, my gosh, team, what we did is we had the clubs take pictures and I left them in Word documents. So you literally can cut and paste the language out of those, and you put in your own photos from your own club, and you'll see exactly how to set one up. You can read it. You can see what is yours most like. I had them, we just blanked out their codes, and there you go. And if you scroll down, you'll see other drawings and everything else. These are the pictures of how they set up their mixer. There's 4 examples in there. So everybody ought to be able to build on this and go through it. And make this happen. This is something that you can be excited about for the tech support. You're leveraging how do you utilize this experience to have more outreach and impact people in the community. So we can jump out of this, and what was in the highlighted are the 2 new resources that we put in, because it's a pretty robust website. Best practices on meetings, that Terry Lowe one, the second one, watch that sometime. That came right out of his breakout session with me down at Rotary Zone Institute. And so that would be a resource to please go to and just enjoy and pass it on to the critical people inside your club. So let me stop sharing now, and you can ask your final 2 questions, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Yeah. So we've talked some about how to create a good product. And so that eliminates one of the questions, but I think what are some ways that we could effectively utilize hybrid meetings then once we have this product and the resources all good? So it is a good product. It's not just the laptop that's pointing at one person and you can't see anybody else in the room or anything like that. But now we have a good product. What are a couple ways you think we could effectively utilize hybrid meetings to promote your club and further engage the community?
Absolutely. So just picture what you saw, and then imagine and ask the question of what if. Mike Rayburn, he does a program called What If, and what if. And so instead of something being impossible, it's what if it was, and just keep leaning into this. And here's a couple. First of all, with great humility, you're public image coordinator. So you've got this in your mind and in your spirit of how you want to bring this expertise to the people. But think about in your community. So think about the Rotary strategic goals, which are impact, expand our reach, enhance engagement, and we want to increase the ability to adapt. That was broken down in the goals that you heard today. So here's a couple examples. I presented during my year an honorary Paul Harris Award to an executive leader. Actually was the executive leader at Shields. We were using their room for some things, and they sponsor our club. And we were just doing Zoom at the time. Their marketing person and public relations person said, how about if you bring the award here during one of our team meetings? So literally we went in with a phone on a tripod that was held. I had a little lapel microphone plugged in. So that was the sound system. We presented. Our first hybrid meeting was everybody on Zoom on our club, but we were in the room at a team meeting at a company presenting an honorary Paul Harris Award to this surprised individual who then we had 2 or 3 people give some speeches to acknowledge Shields, to acknowledge Jason, and then his receiving of this so beautifully in front of our members online, but also in front of his team. So his team could experience it, where normally it'd be in reverse. He'd be at a meeting by himself and we would be giving it to him then. So there's just a creative solution of bringing people in. We did a joint meeting. It was with the Morningside Club, Edina Morningside, another club that meets at the exact same time as us. And it was our 3rd Zoom meeting. So we were in, and we typically have a joint meeting. We'd go to someone's club or they would come to us, and that's shared. And but this time we did it on Zoom. And this is the way we did it. And you could do it with hybrid in the room, people on Zoom, and we had an international guest. I had Karen Jacobson as the guest, who is the voice of Siri internationally in Australia, and she's a concert pianist. So people were promoting the guest. They were so jazzed to hear from her. What's the voice of Siri? And so people's spouses were on and others were on, and they were able to expand this and capture it. And we captured the video of this as well. That's the other thing that we can do with this, is now meetings can be recorded, and to whatever extent you want to edit, they can be replayed. So that's a couple things. And one last one is unlimited spots on Zoom to attend. And so if you have something you want to highlight, people in a company can be there, awards, as we said earlier, whatever you might be highlighting within your sponsors or within people who are receiving the gifts with the grants that are going out. They could literally have the person receiving it at your meeting, but they could have people viewing it from their offices and actually enjoying, and they could be 5, 10, 20 guests just thinking about this. What if? I think that's the way to come at it. So those are a few suggestions.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. And I think adding to it is just, well, if somebody can't, if you have you're talking about having a special meeting, and if somebody can't be there, you say, well, it's all right. You don't need to be there in person. I'll send you the link. Welcome. And it's the same way you reference the people on Zoom or your people in the room, and you go from there. So one last question, and I think this is an important one.
Wait, I'll just add a comment to that. Yeah. I know of some churches where people would come as guests, and I got to believe this could be used and is being used in Rotary. People used to take the time to go to see if they wanted to change churches or whatever it might be. Now with the research, because they were on Zoom and the number of people that were now viewing online, they know that the first 5 to 7 touches of the people are going to be on Zoom before they actually ever come to an in-person message, before they actually come to a service. And so imagine if the sales or the invitation funnel really is that they have 2 or 3 touch points. We had a guest last week that they came for the first time virtually. And if they like what they feel and they see and they experience and how they're welcome, then maybe they attend again that way, and then they come in person. So it could be that this is a way that it's now expected on their side that, hey, if this is available, I won't take up as much of my time to check out what's really there. And then you just need to give them a quality experience.
Sure. Making it easy. One last question. And I think this is the important one, or the most important, because, obviously you have a wealth of information on this, and we've thrown a lot at people here. But what are the top 2 or 3 tips that you would give clubs that want to increase their effectiveness when it comes to hybrid meetings? And before you share, you can't use mine, which is make sure your meetings and events are hybrid. That's just kind of a given here. So okay. 2 or 3 quick tips, and then we'll open it up for Q&A after that.
Absolutely. So here's 3, and there's sub tips in it. One is the equipment, training, and buy-in. This can be fun, and it's all about mindset. And so have the mindset, start with why, and the tip is then get the equipment. that you need, and then practice with it. I've had some presidents where they bring me in and then they're like taking it out of the box at their first meeting versus practice at home, or do a meeting, with your team the day before or the week before. Make sure all the cables are there. Practice, have fun. Just make that happen. That's a pet peeve, because you do that a couple times. Once you get started, then give yourself the grace that it's going to be 6 to 8 meetings to kind of get good at it. That's one. Number two, promotion of your events with the big picture audience in mind. Think who may benefit, why, and include them. Get your calendar out 1 to 2 months, and now you have, as you let people know, who do you know that would be interested in this speaker? And the neat thing is, the guest doesn't have to come in person. They can come virtually, or you can have actually your speaker be virtual. And the third is, think of influencers to have as guests and as speakers. Make others the heroes of the story. If you notice those pictures, it wasn't me the hero. I was taking pictures of them. Ruth was the hero, and Marlis was the hero, and Mark and Steve, other people. Make other people the heroes of your story. It's all about them, because they're always thinking, what's in it for me? WWWIIFM, what's in it for me? FM. Interactive, make it interactive. I'm going to leave you one tip from speaking. Do things in threes. You're given the message, but while you're giving the message, how do I involve people? You have a speaker. While I'm having the speaker who hasn't come for a while that might be interested in that industry, have them as the introducer of the speaker. Always try to layer what you're doing so that you have multiple touch points with whatever you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And I know a couple of the questions are lead into what you just said as well. Before we do open it up for the Q&A, just so you're aware, registration is open for our next couple of public image webinars, but I'm going to send the link to the March version here in just now, and you can register if you'd like to, because that one will be another good one. Also, if you have any suggestions for success stories to showcase or topics you'd like to see covered, please respond to the email that you get that summarizes this session, because we want ideas from you. Our team of assistants is putting together as much as we can, but the more ideas we can get that we know are going to be relevant and important to all of you, those suggestions are welcome. So now we'll go with any questions. It is just about 5 o'clock, so I know we try to keep this until about 5, but we'll go over in the Q&A a little bit here for another 10 minutes or so. But if you need to drop off, that's okay. We'll keep the recording going. But John, you just mentioned giving people a good experience and making people feel welcome. And Bob McLean from District 5580 asked, how do you make people, especially prospective members, feel welcome via Zoom?
Utilize their names whenever you can. So if a member's back twice, often we'll have them say something. Let them say something about themselves. A friend may introduce them, but then invite them to give 30 seconds or a minute on what they do, or how did they come to hear about Rotary, or a little bit about their life. And so you involve them as the guest when you're announcing who are our guests today. And then as you're doing announcements or other touch points, you might mention at the end, we want to thank Jim and Susan and Jill and Karen and Bob for stopping in today. You're welcome next week. You're welcome anytime. Just find ways to use their names in a sentence and to get them involved. And certainly ask if you do questions in the room, and then you do questions online often. And then maybe the next time you go questions on virtual, anybody has questions, hey, by the way, the guest, we welcome your questions as well. You just find a way to layer it in at the end of the sentence. I call it layering the cake. You have the message, and then you start layering underneath at other places where you can have touch points.
Absolutely. And I know I don't like talking about my club, but I know in our club meetings, we have a online greeter and an in-person greeter. And then as we get to the more of the business part of the meeting, when we're introducing guests, it kind of alternates that. And with Happy Dollars is that, okay, let's go guess who is on any guests on Zoom. And it's the responsibility of that greeter on Zoom who has made that person feel feel connected. Well, when they're all talking that morning, they're introducing those people the same way. Then it transitions the people in the room. And same thing with happy dollars. It's okay, who's got happy dollars? And like you saw in the one picture you had, everybody's up there in the Hollywood Squares version of things. And then when they're speaking, one of our tech people pins them, so they're the ones that are taking up the full screen. Again, the room, it's making them seem like they're more important, and it doesn't. And same thing with announcements or whatever. So you're not feeling like you're just watching something. And I think that was a good key that you made earlier on that too. And
you reinforced a skill or a technique, which is having the online host, and you have the greeters. We have greeters in the room, have a greeters online. And so if the room is opened up, let's say 10, 15 minutes early before your meeting, this person is greeting. If there's 6, 8, 10 people there, they're having a conversation. You just mute it. On the mixer, you just mute that particular channel down so that it's not coming through the room, and they can talk, and then you bring it up when you bring the meeting together. Yeah. And I think one other thing I would suggest, because that's not always perfect, and sometimes you forget to unmute the people on Zoom, or you've muted the room so the people on Zoom can converse while something's happening. If you have a tech person, make sure they're not overwhelmed, or have an assistant that's monitoring the chat box too. So if there are questions, or hey, we can't hear anybody, which I've seen in the past, somebody is watching the chat box at all times to make sure there's troubleshooting going on as well. You don't want to just ignore that part of things. Another question. The three most popular words that we heard, right? It used to, we wanted to say "I love you," but it's really "you're on mute." And there you go. There you go. Jackie Johnson in 5950 asked, and now you can't go for too long on this. Got it. Any recommendations on equipment? Yes. Go to the link in the website. Download the technical guide. On it, I have links to Amazon and links to other places, such as this particular mixer. There's direct links. This equipment that's behind me is all in the technical guide. Everything is there, and you just click on the links and find it. Certainly you can email me if you have other questions, but you'll see it right there. The links are live, and it'll take you right to the products that you need. So a simple mixer. Now, sometimes you don't need a mixer in a hotel or something, because they might have one and you can use it, and then it's just cables and doing the thing. So take an inventory of the room that you're in, take an inventory of whether it's got a projector or a big screen already, and then we start filling in the gaps. The key is going to be, it's all about this. Oops. It's all about this little card, and this is all in the guide. And so this is the sound card that fits into the computer, so that when I talk in the microphone, it's going to go through the mixer and out the speaker, and it's going to go through the mixer into Zoom at the same time. And when they speak on Zoom, it's going to come out. You'll change the setting to USB. It's going to come out, and I've got it set for channels 4 and 5 here. And so now you take it down to about a 0.2 to 0.4 of a delay. Everything is in real time. And so it's the mixer and this little sound card and cables. It's all in the guide. And I think everybody, especially over the last couple of years, we've become more comfortable with people having meetings from their office or from home or wherever, where that whole, even newscasts, sportscasts and stuff like that, interviews, doing it on Zoom is okay. And don't let perfection be the enemy of progress either. Good is okay. It's something is better than nothing. A couple questions here one question, and then partly somebody else chimed in with an answer, but how do you handle and involve the Zoomers while people in the room are eating or chatting? That came from Linda in District 50 or 6440 down in the Chicago area. And Leanne Davis had actually said, we put our online people into a breakout room during the beginning while table talk is happening. Then the tech person is in charge of bringing them back.
that's one way. John, have you seen anything else that works as well?
Well, two, and that what you said earlier which is having the online host. And so now it's quiet and they're visiting amongst themselves. Your club is this way because it's a breakfast meeting. We're a breakfast meeting, though we pretty much start the meeting as we at about, let's say 25 till, but they can be visiting amongst themselves before this. And then during the meal, we're actually conducting the meeting. But at the Bloomington Club, they like to keep it open so that you're hearing the conversation of your friends. And in some cases, they're hearing the conversation of the people online. They can actually kind of do shout outs and things. Again, that's more based on the culture of the club. Your club, Kyle, I mean, you've got it gets loud. There's the jazzing of stuff going on. And so there's a culture that you built in, and it's Hollywood Squares. And literally you got people in boxes almost pointing at each other there. And in other clubs, it's done a little differently. So it's fun.
And one of the things that I've heard from our club, and I bounce back and forth between whether or not I'm there or not, but both my parents are in our club and weren't at meetings for 6+ months because my mom had a kidney transplant, so couldn't be there in person. But the people that are usually on Zoom contend that it's actually a better meeting on Zoom because in that 20 minutes, while everybody in the room is eating breakfast and only talking to the 3, 4, 5 people at their table, they're able to have a longer discussion with more people involved. And we've had a couple of speakers of significance, John Germ, past Rotary International president, being one. And I don't remember who the other one was, but they ended up having a second conversation after the meeting was done for another 20 minutes afterwards. So it was like, hey, those are great comments. And now we're just going to have our own little, coffee talk from that perspective too. So Dan Brown up in 5580 Fort William, I think that's in Canada, has 2 times enjoying those eating at 5:30, those by Zoom at 6:15 when the meeting starts. So yeah, that's an option too, is you don't have to be there at the same time. So but I think you're right, it does fit the club. Any other questions that I missed at all from anybody? And go ahead and unmute yourself if you want to, because we're probably close enough at this point.
And I have one final slide too at the end.
Hey, Cal, this is Scott.
Hey, Scott, go for it.
I just wanted, first of all, thanks, John. You really inspired me down at the Zone Institute to actually come back home and research this and figure out a way to make this work. And in my case, I bought everything, up front. It's not expensive. I mean, we're not talking about thousands of dollars to do this. I bought everything that you have behind you there and then some, and I spent less than $500.
There you go.
So, and I have it in 2 suitcases, and one suitcase and one backpack in the trunk of my car, and it goes with me everywhere I go. So I encourage everybody to go do it.
Yeah,
it's well worth it.
Yeah, where the price can go up or down is based on what you want to spend on microphones.
Or that speaker behind you was the one that item was the most expensive thing I bought.
Yep. Some places you can plug right into the wall and you're using the house sound. Others you've got something for a couple $100, and you get to use it over a long period of time. It's a lot of good
John,
for you.
Another question here from the Chicagoland area. Richard Brill says, Our club has Zoomed forever successfully, but last week's restaurant room had very poor Wi-Fi and on-site video, and the on-site video and audio kept freezing. Any solutions to that?
Ask them. Yeah, that's the issue. Is it's in our best practices, the do's and don'ts. You watch this video, but it's asking about what is the Wi-Fi? Can you stabilize it? I don't know. This is what you need to experiment, whether you could burn a hotspot. In other words, using a telephone, as a hotspot, but having the Wi-Fi. I like to go to a hard cable. So if you can get to a hard cable system, and if this is a place that that they're kind of married to each other, you're working together, then can you get an Ethernet connection to the Wi-Fi versus using the Wi-Fi? So you're bypassing the Wi-Fi. You'll get a higher speed that way as well. And last is sometimes in bigger hotels, they'll have 2 levels They'll have one level for just the regular hotel, and they'll have a faster level for conferences and things such as that. So, but if you're in a place that it's kind of choppy, people will forgive bad video before they'll forgive bad audio. So try to keep the audio live, and when it freezes up, that's problematic. It does wear on people.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, Floyd.
Yeah. We're a small club.
Yep.
And we can get on like this, no problem. But the problem gets to be when we are the host. And wondering if you can is there a way you can email out a procedure list to do it right when you're going to be the host and you're going to try to get onto the community's Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff? So we don't have any equipment other than a computer here that, we sit it down on the desk and have it be what it will be. But we got people that want to be on Zoom.
Absolutely, Floyd. How many people in the room typically? And then if people wanted to be on Zoom, so when you did Zoom, how many were attending? And when you're meeting, how many people are attending? Just help me get a visual of this.
Well, our meetings can be anywhere from 2 to maybe 6.
Okay, no, that helps. So there's 2 setups that I have on that particular web page that I shared, and I'm going to show you. I can do a quick screen share if Kyle will allow me to take
Can you just send it to me on the email, please?
Yeah, it'll be Kyle. It's going to be the small club setup and just the video that goes with it. So
okay, that'd be great. We were a club.
You'll see it on that page. Just look for the link, small club setup. And it's a 6-minute video. It's on the hybrid page that we shared, and then just look at the equipment there. I do a demo of it. Okay. It's real. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. You just need to be able to get Wi-Fi and have a connection to some external speakers, small ones. They can be Logitechs because you got 2 to 6 people. That they don't need to be a speaker like what I have behind me. Be those little tiny speakers that you just plug into the speaker on your laptop. Have a little microphone that goes into the laptop, so people around, or you have 2 or 3 people, they just talk into the laptop, and then you have that hooked up into Zoom. And the reason you have the 2 small speakers, Floyd, is so that when the people on Zoom talk, you can hear them in the room. So there could be 5 people on Zoom, 2 people in the room, and you're having an interactive session. You can either be looking at the laptop with 3 people gathered around and just looking through the one camera, or you could have a little bit bigger monitor as I have behind me, or maybe they have a 65 or 85-inch TV and you plug into that. And that just takes a few more steps and some practice, but it's all possible.
Makes sense. Why don't you do your last slide, and then we will bid adieu for the evening.
Yep. This picture it was such an impact. And it's the Scully story. If you recall, U.S. Airlines Flight 1549 with 150 passengers and 5 crew. And it was January 15th, 2009, where just shortly after takeoff, they went through a flock of birds and both engines went out. Now, what you might not know is this. Captain Scully was the senior. It was his plane, but he was not the captain for that flight. The junior flight pilot was the captain. As soon as they went through the birds and the engines died, I'll tear up on this, he said, "I'm taking over the plane." He owned it. It was 210 seconds before they touched down. In 3.5 minutes, he needed to determine, starting with why, the safety of the passengers, what he was going to do. He had never trained for this before, so he had to improvise. And he was skipping steps in the checklist to restart because he couldn't have the time to go through the entire checklist. So he went to his intuition and his skills. And at 2.5 minutes, he had made the decision. And with 60 seconds to go, he said 3 words to the passengers. The only statement he made to the passengers and crew in the back were these 3 words: brace for impact. Brace for impact. My suggestion is that each of you, with all that you do it with the heart, mind, and spirit that you want to help your Rotarians and community embrace and brace for impact. this is something you can use to do this, but remember the why. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you being here with us today and appreciate everybody that's been in the room today.